living with mental health, chemical health issues that need attention, and all we do is either walk by and ignore him, or some people might stop and give him something, but it takes some dedicated time to be spent, and beat cops can't do that, church groups that come out and pass out food that can't do that, but by having people either in an outreach program or in an in-service program help people, that guy actually came and spoke at Councilmember Lisa Goodman's Lunch with Lisa. And so here he went from panhandling on Nicollet Mall to being a community educator. And he was still a panhandler and still homeless, but now all of a sudden he was the guest speaker that day. So it's very interesting how we perceive people in different settings.
I just want to reiterate what I would say is it's about relationships, and the model that St. Stephen's is leading us with about building relationships and hearing the stories and empowering people to share their own stories. But unless we're willing to take a risk to somehow break that tie between panhandling and all the other ills of society, as if panhandling equals all those ills, we have to be willing to take that risk to debunk that, and to work hard in relationships to find ways to change it. You know, those movements that were asked in these questions didn't happen quickly, but they happened a little at a time, and the relationships were an important part of that.
And I'm just going to say one final thing. I mean, of course, Monica has the opportunity, and others here as street outreach worker, to build these relationships with people, get to know them, get to know their stories, and of course that has developed all of her thoughts and feelings about who people are. The general public doesn't get that opportunity. You don't know the stories, you aren't having an opportunity to connect. I'm going to take this opportunity for one plug, and not just because I need volunteers, but because I actually truly believe that this is a way that people can change their perception of homelessness and understand what's really going on. There's an event that we do in Minneapolis twice a year called Project Homeless Connect. It's at the Minneapolis Convention Center. It brings together about 1,000 community volunteers, usually a couple thousand people who are either homeless or on the edge of homelessness, and about 400 to 500 service providers who provide services that day: mental health, housing, employment, haircuts, etc. Every single person in this room could come to that event and literally walk arm in arm all day long with somebody who's experiencing homelessness, hear their story, help them navigate the system, and then you understand how challenging it is to find that job or get that place to live. And then you become a better advocate as well. So I would just love to throw that out to all of you as a challenge. It may be a little uncomfortable, but it will change your life, I believe it. And then you can also share that information with your faith community or your business where you work and get others to join you as well.
I would like to challenge one thing, though. I do think that we all have a chance to hear the stories, because if we see the people every day, if we're passing them every day, we can stop and slowly build relationships. So we don't have to be the professional, the St. Stephen's outreach worker to hear their stories. Absolutely, Homeless Connect, go. But I do think that it's easy to say, oh, I'll never hear the stories. I can, if I listen.
And just one thing on Project Homeless Connect, you will be provided with training beforehand so that you know how to walk that person through where they need to be.
HomelessConnectMinneapolis.org.
And to the panel, don't be shy about speaking. That's why you're here. That's why we invited you. Jump in there. Do we have a sense of how long people typically panhandle? Is it months or years, or is it just completely all over the map?
It's funny, because I never dreamed that I would panhandle, and really I didn't want to continue to panhandle because there's truly no dignity in it. You kind of have to throw shame out of the window and perception out of the window, what people think of you. Throw that out the window. You don't even sit there with that in your mind. So it's funny because I never met here who works at the Basilica, but I stood out in front of the Basilica one Sunday and it was snowing. It was snowing very heavily, and I stood out there and someone that was panhandling walked away from there sign, threw it down, and I picked it up just to see. And I got about $180 in less than an hour. And that's addictive. I wanted to go back. And I see why these people do this. And I never got that right down there in front of St. Stephen's where I was doing it. You know?
Even was it Thanksgiving or Christmas?
No, it was last year actually, and I'm so I'm not so far removed from that situation in my life, but I am so utterly grateful that that has changed for me. And so I only panhandled for maybe 18 months, because that's how long I was homeless the last time I was homeless.
What would you say for panhandle?
Well, I don't know the educated words like the rest of the panel knows, but I can say to you that the length of your paneling experience is determined by your ability or your inability to take a look at yourself, and it is determined by how long you're willing to be in a pity hole or whatever your situation is. I'm not, everybody has, I'm not saying nothing against anybody, but it's really determined by your willingness to make yourself better. And if you want to go down there and you want to get high every day, and it's never going to end. But if you need it to help you to find job connections and to help make your life better, then, like I say, for me, it was about 7 or 8 months, and then I had enough. Sorry.
I just want to reiterate something Fred said that I wrote down. He said he was sitting at home with no phone, no computer, obviously, to look for jobs, and no answers. And he knew that at the corner he was exposed to every person driving by. So I guess I see it as, for some people, they're going to be out there panhandling until someone responds. We do have some survey. This is the more boring answer, but when Matthew did the survey 3 years ago and surveyed 45 people who were consistently panhandling, the average length of time panhandling for them was 8.7 years, with responses ranging from 2 months to 30 years. So it's pretty wide, and it was important to note that they didn't necessarily do that every day for 8.7 years, but that they panhandled on and off for a period.
But are they panhandling because, okay, I need to go have that drink, or okay, what's your job? Well, I hold a sign. Are they panhandling because they need to feed your children and you're getting to a temporary situation? So I don't know if you can point at a certain amount of time on a piece of paper. A lot of the people you see, I don't go to Nicollet Mall to Target because I panhandled, but I held a sign up on 7th, and I say where I was 7th and Highway 55. And I've never walked up to anybody and said, can you give me a dime? Or, I held a sign up, gave them the choice to roll their window down, and I never once ever walked up to a car. I always waited to be motioned. Maybe saving myself a ticket, I was figuring. But I don't go to Nicollet Mall because, to be really honest, I don't go to Nicollet Mall, I don't go by Target because I know Monica's going to slap me, but most of the people down there are full of crap that are asking you for money and
That's your perception.
That's my perception. Yes, it is, but I know a lot of the people, and I know that they're not there making themselves better, and I know what you're up to. So you're right, some people are in it. They don't have a choice, and it's circumstances. Some people really abuse the good nature and the good fortune given to us by the good people of Minneapolis. And, sorry.
This is a question I hear often. Do you encounter panhandlers who resist getting into housing or into shelters?
What's that, sir?
Do you encounter panhandlers who resist getting into housing or into shelters?
Well, here's my answer. I know people, and I think Stephen mentioned this, who will choose to sleep outside over a very overcrowded, smelly shelter. But if you were to ask Stephen if he would trade his apartment right now for shelter outside, his answer would be
No.
I think sometimes people are in great despair, and they think when I talk to people, all I'm going to offer them is Curry Avenue, Salvation Army Catholic Charities, and so they're like, I'm fine, just leave me alone, I'm fine. But if we talk about housing, and as Kathy mentioned, housing first, we'll do housing first, we have great success and have moved thousands of people, at St. Stephen's, hundreds of people alone just at St. Stephen's.
I think Chris started out talking about some statistics, and I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. Hitchhiked to get to Minneapolis in 1997. I've been here ever since. And it's a fact that the average cell in the average prison is 6 by 9, and I was in one for many years. And so what I'm saying is that statistics show that a guy can get out of prison and have a prison history or record or something like that, and he probably won't have an opportunity to ever be a meaningful member of society, because statistics show that naturally when you walk in and you write your name on an application and tell them that you have that type of history, as soon as you walk out the door, before the door even closed, your application will be in the garbage. I went to school after I got out of prison and slept in an elevator while going to school until I finally ended up sleeping in a shelter, voluntarily working for that shelter while working at a plasma center that a lady knew me to be on the streets before, but when she found out I was in school, gave me an opportunity to have a job. So I worked 2 jobs and went to school for 18 months to get a degree that I can't even get a job in. And I aced school. So how is that for a statistic?
Is there more room in a jail cell or in a bed at Salvation Army or Catholic Charities?
There's more room in a jail cell.
I'd just like to add to this answer in that I was talking with a man who lives in a camp not far from the Basilica, and he's been there for decades, and is working with St. Stephen's, and we talked about getting an apartment, and his response was, well, what am I going to do during the day? And, it was just this whole paradigm shift around, you can still go out and do things, but it's about sleeping, it's about safety. And he started talking about how when he sleeps in